you because you thought that I called on you, and I feel bad. All right, this gentleman right here, in the tie. Yeah, he looks sharp.
Okay. Mr. President, thank you. It's an honor to stand before you. Thank you. Earlier in your message, you mentioned our transit system. Obviously, we do need help, and we're in dire need to have some assistance there. But what I didn't hear anything is your interest in our steel mill. That's a big part of our community, and we desperately need help there as well. I just wondered where Washington's stance is on our steel mill.
Well,
thank you.
I was talking to your mayor about this. Obviously, he's a big advocate for manufacturing in the region. I do not have all the details in terms of what's happening at the steel mill at this moment. But what we've done is we've set up an office in the White House just focused on manufacturing. Because it's my view that America's got to make things. Now, we're not going to make, I want to be honest, not all the manufacturing jobs that have gone are going to come back. And if people tell you they are, that's just not true. Because a lot of that has moved to places where the wages are just much lower. And I know that some people say, well, then we should just set up tariffs so that folks can't ship them in. But these days, the economy, the global economy is so interconnected that that's just not a practical solution. The solution is to find, and I don't know the details of the steel mill here, but I know that the ones that have been successful, they do what EMC is doing as well, which is you find what's the high-end market. What's the market that involves a lot of technology, specialization, highly trained workers, quick turnarounds to spec so that the customers really feel like they're getting something special and different. That's how you compete, because that's something that a steel mill in China or in Brazil can't do. They can't compete with you being on the spot working closely with customers. So finding ways to develop specialty steels and so forth, that's going to be the key. Our manufacturing office will be working with folks here in town to see what we can do. All right? Thank you. All right, back to this young lady here.
First, I want to start by saying that I am very grateful, to be here, to meet you in person. I absolutely support you and back you. I feel like Rome wasn't built in a day, and I know that everybody's really impatient, but I know that with time, things can be turned around. And I believe that your intentions are really, really honorable in that.
I appreciate that.
I am a single mother of 3, and I have 2 quick issues that are very important to me. One being that I have a 3-year-old who has just turned 3 who got lead poisoning last year and almost died. And I've called everyone, including the EPA of Ohio, and I cannot seem to get any response to this.
Well, guess what? I guarantee you that somebody from the EPA is going to call you in about 5 minutes. Before you sit down, there's going to be a phone call from the EPA. All joking aside, and I know you have a second question, but I just want to focus on this. Lead poisoning, a lot of it from lead paint, from older homes all across the country and all across the Midwest, is something that we have to be more aggressive on. This is something that I worked on when I was a U.S. Senator. When I was a state senator, I am working on it as president, and I will find out directly from them how they can help not only with your particular situation, but what we're doing in this area in terms of lead abatement.
Okay.
Okay.
The second thing is that I want to address to you is the unfair labor laws that they seem to have in some of these industries, as far as discrimination and different issues of that nature that don't seem to get addressed from the bigger companies. I have actually worked for Ford. I'm a full-time student now here at LC, gratefully. And even when I was working there, and I have my whole family has actually come up through Ford, And there's a lot of very unjust situations that come about, but no attorneys will deal with it, no one will talk about it, and it's always pushed under the rug. And I do owe what I have now to Ford because it was what was bread and butter for my family. But at the same time, it's not fair that even at this point, my mother still can't retire. She has to continue to suffer.
Well, look, let me just say generally, one of the things that my administration has been able to do over the last year that does not cost money is just enforcing laws that are on the books a little more aggressively. Making sure, I mentioned earlier, equal pay for equal work. We are so past the point where it should be debatable that women get paid the same as men for doing the same job. And it is something that, especially because, there was a study was just released, I think, last week showing that increasingly wives are making more than husbands in some circumstances. And whoever's making more, you've got to have two paychecks. So this is not just a feminist issue, quote unquote. Sometimes guys say, well, why should I care about that? Well, let me tell you something. If your wife is getting paid fairly, that means your family is getting paid fairly. And I want my daughters to be treated the same way as your sons. That's something we shouldn't be arguing about anymore. All right. Gentleman right back there. Yeah, it was a guy's turn. Yes, sir.
Yes. My name is James Skurlock, and I'm an inventor. And I hold patent, U.S. patent number 7,397,731.
Okay.
And before I ask my question, I'd like to make a sales pitch. If you can use my patent in your next election, I think you can raise a ton of money worldwide. You should take a look at it.
I will take a look. All right.
If you can't use it, the government can use it, and I can build a multi-billion-dollar business here in Ohio.
All right, we'll take a look at your patent. Go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah. Okay, it has to do with international patent rights. With all this free trade and trade barriers falling, it's really hard for an individual like me with a global scope patent to file all over the world and get patent protection everywhere, and having to go overseas to fight infringement. So if you're going to drop trade barriers, maybe you can extend my patent rights to the foreign countries.
No, this is a great question, and this is a huge problem. Look, our competitive advantage in the world is going to be people like this who are using their minds to create new products, new services. But that only helps us and helps you build a multi-billion-dollar company if somebody can't just steal that idea and suddenly start making it in Indonesia or Malaysia or Bangladesh with very cheap workers. And one of the problems that we have had is insufficient protection for intellectual property rights. That's true in China. It's true for everything from bootleg DVDs to very sophisticated software. And there's nothing wrong with other people using our technologies. We just want to make sure that it's licensed and you're getting paid. So I've given instructions to my trade offices, and we actually highlight this at the highest levels of foreign policy, that these are issues that have to be addressed because that's part of the reciprocity of making our markets open. And so when I met with President Hu of China, this is a topic that at dinner I directly brought up with him. But as you point out, it's got to be sustained. Because a lot of times they'll say yes, 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 but then there's no enforcement on their end. And one of the things that we're also doing is using our export arm of the U.S. government to help work with medium-sized businesses and small businesses, not just the big multinationals, to protect their rights in some of these areas. Because we need to boost exports. Can I just say, we just went through a decade where we were told that it didn't matter, you just keep on importing, buying stuff from other countries. You just take out a home equity loan and max out your credit card, and everything's going to be okay. And it looked for a lot of people like, well, the economy seems to be growing, but it was all built on a house of cards. That's what we now know. And that's why if we're going to have a successful manufacturing sector, we've got to have successful exports. When I went and took this trip to China and took this trip to Asia,